In this video, I want to show you how to debug this kind of program where we have to go through a list. So here's the problem that's attempted here. So we need to return the sum of the numbers in a list. So here it says array, but it's really a list. Except 13 shouldn't count, and also whatever comes after 13 should not count. So here we don't have an example like that, but presumably the idea would be that here this 1 would not count, but this 5 would count. So let's try and see what the solution does. So the solution doesn't quite do that. It says we want to ignore both the 1 and the 5 if they come after 13, but that's not the main problem right now. So let me try to reindent the function. So far so good, it works. But now let me try to call it. So I'll have a main block. I don't have to put it in the main block. I can just put it outside the function in general. And what I'll say is sum13. And I'll say something like 1, 2, 2, 13, 4, 5. Okay. And I'll try to run this. I got a list index out of range error, like that. So here it says list index out of range. So what do? So I'll say shell postmortem. And now I see that I produced the error on line 12. So this is also what it said here, of course. So what am I trying to do here? So I'm trying to say here nums I. Nums rather, not nums I. And here it says list index out of range. Okay, so what's the problem here? So here I is 13. So why is that a problem? Well, obviously there isn't nums at 13 because, you know, the list is shorter than that. So the problem seems to be, that's the first problem, is that here you're saying for I in nums, and that means that what we're putting in I is 1 and then 2 and then 2 and then 13 and then 4 and then 5. But that's clearly not what we want here. What we want I to be is 0 and then 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 4 and then the index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is what we want. So how do we accomplish that? Well, instead of saying for I in nums, what we'll say is for I in the range of the length of nums. So that'll solve that problem. So I already said stop, so I press this button, and now I can rerun again. That did not solve the problem. We still have a list index out of range error. So what's going on? Again, let's say we want shell postmortem, and we're back at line 12. We again have the problem. So we're trying to compare nums I to 13. So what's nums I right now? Well, that's an error. Why is that? Well, I is 4. Well, that's a bit weird because 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, we did have an element here. But what's nums right now? Well, nums is 1, 2, 2. Why is nums 1 to 2? Well, that's because we made it. So, right? So we said nums is equal nums up to I if nums at I equals to 13. So nums got modified. So, okay, so we kind of see the problem, so let's try to pinpoint it. So what I'll do is I'll put a breakpoint over here, and I'll try to run the thing again from the beginning, keeping in mind that when I becomes 4, I have a problem. So, okay, so let's step in, like that. And now we are over here, so now result is 0, and now we're saying for I in range length of nums, okay. So now we're saying if nums at I equals to 13, okay, so I right now should be 0. You can also see it here. That makes sense. And nums right now is this list. So, okay. So we go, okay, fine, it's not equal to 13. What's nums I right now? Well, now it's 2, so it's again not 13. So we move on. I becomes 2. So I is now 2. And 0, 1, 2, so nums at I is still 2. It's this 2 right now, and now the interesting thing is going to happen. So what's going to happen now is nums at I is equal to 13, so we're going to go inside this block. Let's see what happens. Here we're saying nums is equal to nums up to I. So what's nums up to I, and not including I? Well, that's 1, 2, 2. So nums now will become 1, 2, 2. And now here you're saying result is the sum of nums. Okay, so we compute result. But here we still go on because we just compute the length of nums the once. So now I will become 4 because the length of nums was computed once in the beginning, and back then it was 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So back then it was 6, so that means that I is going to go from 0 and up to 5 inclusive. And that's going to cause problems because right now we're going to try to evaluate nums at I, and I is 4, and nums right now is of length 3. So we couldn't access that. So that was the problem. So, okay. So the lesson here is you should not be modifying nums while you're iterating over it. So how could you solve that problem? Let's say that you wanted to solve the problem that this code attempted to solve, which is to try to compute the sum here up to 13 and then discard everything else. Or compute this sum here and then discard everything, the 13 and everything after it. So what would you do? Well, one thing you can do is you could say, instead of computing a result, you could just say return the sum of nums I. So two things happen here. So first of all, you're not actually modifying nums, you're just creating a new list on the fly, which consists of all the elements of the original nums from 0 and up to index I minus 1. And second of all, you're returning that. So even if you were modifying nums here, that wouldn't matter because once you hit the return statement, that's it. The function is done. Okay.